Hi, I'm Dr. Isela Garcia, and welcome to Early Childhood Learning Bites. In today's segment, I want to talk about supporting children's skill set. Now, in the last couple sessions, I've talked about children's emotional experiences and that we need to give them permission to feel what they feel. A lot of us as children did not have that opportunity. We were not allowed to feel frustrated, irritated, sad, annoyed, all of those things, right? It is important for children to have the permission to feel what they feel and to have an adult who supports them through the experience of their feelings, not get sent away, not get out of my face until you know how to act right. Those are the things that we heard as children, not everybody, but some of us. And as a result, we disconnect from our emotional state. We really need to support children in staying connected to what they are experiencing emotionally to let them know that it's very okay for them to have these very big emotions. One of the stories that I shared was a story about my child going to the grocery store. And I'm not going to give you the full story, so you have to go to the prior segments to hear the whole story. But the synopsis of the story is that we had been riding our bikes to a local grocery store. She was 4 at the time. And we went in with the intent to buy a couple things, but I would end up buying like a lot of things because in the evening time, which is typically when we would go, they would start marking down like fruit and vegetables and some meats. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can get organic strawberries for, 25 cents. So I'm going to buy 5 of them because yeah. And so I would end up with too many things. Or we would end up with too many things. And so I would have to call my husband and be like, can you come pick us up? Or come pick up the groceries while we ride our bikes back. And it was just getting like out of hand. So I made the decision that we kind of needed to stop that. And that if I needed to go back and get other things that I could drive back and do that because it was very hard to manage that on a bike. And I was worried about my kid on the bike and all of the things, right? So anyway, she's 4, so she's learning. Okay, and we're going to go back to that. She's still learning. So it was a new thing. We started to write down our grocery list. And so these are the things that we're going to buy today. So we went to the store and my daughter says in the dairy yogurt aisle, she sees her favorite yogurt and she goes, Mama, can I have that yogurt? Now on the past days, I'm like, yeah, sure. Get the yogurt, but we have a list. And is the yogurt gonna tip us over? Probably not, but it's the list and it's a new process that I kind of have to stick to, right? If we're gonna create this new pattern of behavior, we have to stick to this pattern. And so I was like, well, remember we made the list. And then I showed her the list and I said, remember we wrote down the things that we were going to buy and we're not going to buy the things that are not on our list. Remember? And it took a couple seconds and then I start to see the lip quiver. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? So I know it's coming, like it's coming. And she starts to cry. It starts as a small cry and then it starts as a big cry. And then she starts like cry screaming and she's like, but I want the yogurt and you never feed me and I'm starving and like all that stuff. And you have to know that the grocery store, I don't know if I mentioned this already, is a tiny store. It's like probably the size of Trader Joe's, maybe a little bit smaller. And so everybody heard it. Everybody heard it. And so there's that part. Now, I've been doing this work for a while, so I am less apt to feel embarrassed by these situations. I've had all kinds of stories I can share with you, being out in public with children doing all kinds of things. So I'm less embarrassed, but I get how people can be embarrassed by the experience and want to get, because people are judging. Right? Judgy. People are judging. When you're the best parent when you don't have any children, right? When you have no children, you're very quick to judge. Or when you're a grandparent because you forgot the reality of the situation. So anyway, I'm in the store. She's having a full-on meltdown. And my job is not to perceive the experience as though she's giving me a hard time. She's being a spoiled little brat. She's like all the things that they're are old stories. That's what they are. And it's our inability to manage our own emotional state in that moment. What she needs in that moment is a grown up who can love her, who can support her. And this is called co-regulation, to be the pillar of strength in the midst of her chaotic experience, her big emotions. Her emotions are valid. And I shared that in the last segment. So you need to go back and listen to that one. Her emotions are valid. She wants the yogurt. She's very distressed that she doesn't have the yogurt. That's a valid experience. Think about a time when you wanted something and you didn't get what you wanted, or you were disappointed, which is the worst, right? So you're disappointed, and emotionally you might be able to kind of contain yourself a bit more, but that's because you're a grown up and have had a little more practice. Now, a lot of grown ups still aren't unable to do that. So don't feel bad if you're still working on that. But for young children, what happens is we have this expectation that they're going to be able to kick through it very quickly, and they're not there yet. They're not there yet. So I need to filter through all the thoughts that I'm having that may be negative about the experience that I'm observing. What she needs is somebody to help her feel safe, connected, and loved. That's what she needs. Okay. So I get down to her level and I say, you really, really, really want this yogurt, right? And so I say that to her, and I stay calm and fully present. And so fast forward, because again, it's in the other segment. One of the things that I think about once I have validated their experiences, once I have kind of created this safe place for them to feel what they feel, is I think about what skills are still developing here. What skills are still needed? And so this is the phrase that I have used for the last forever long. He's still learning how to. She's still learning how to. They're still learning how to. Okay. And I'm going to use the they to be a bit more inclusive. Okay. So they're still learning how to. Now, in that situation with my daughter, they're still learning how to regulate emotions, which, by the way, doesn't come for a very long time. Like, children don't learn self-regulation, like actually self-regulation, like full on know how to do it until like early adulthood. Okay. We have these expectations of young children that are developmentally inappropriate, not appropriate. Okay. And so she's still learning how to develop self-regulation. She's learning how to manage these very big emotions. She's learning how to. Now, let's think about children in your settings. Now, I have worked with a lot of kids who bite, and I think biting is brilliant. I may have shared this already, but like, I see a toy, I want the toy, right? I go over and I bite her arm, and she magically releases the toy. That is brilliant. I don't know where she goes. She's crying, and I'm not worried about that because I get the toy. And so that, like, I can get it, and this is how I get it, is a brilliant experience. Now, it's not socially acceptable to go around biting people. It's just not. So eventually we want to like end that, right? So what I think about is, what skill is the child still developing? What skill is the child still needing? Maybe it is being able to say, my turn, please. My turn, please. And I say that because it's usually around toddlerhood that we're talking. Not always, but usually. And so, my turn, please. Or even reaching out and having some language, or having some way to communicate using sign language or other ways to communicate. So I'm thinking, okay, what skill is the child still developing? Okay, they're still learning how to. Okay, is the way that I think about it. It's the way that I engage with families. So when families are saying, like, how was his day? Well, he's still learning how to communicate what he wants. He's learning how to, they're learning how to say, I need my space. It's too loud in here. Instead of, probably what's happening is the child's exploding. And so the child's still learning how to say, it's too loud for me in here. So still learning helps us recognize that it's a developmental process that children go through to develop these skills. We sometimes get all screwy when we think about it as a behavior problem. It's not a behavior problem. It's not a behavior challenge. We have to step back and go, what skill set is the child still learning to develop? What is it? Is it being able to put a pause between something that they're wanting and then reacting? Is that what it is? Is it being able to take a breath after they're feeling very big emotions, a couple deep breaths to bring them back to this present state so them to finish, to complete a task maybe? What is it? Is it they need the language to be able to articulate their needs? We got to get out of the mindset that the child is just having behavior problems. If they're sitting at circle time and the child is rolling around, poking somebody next to him, my first question outside of, what are they still learning is, so let me, my second question, my second question. So what's the child still learning? Now I have to ask myself, is my expectation developmentally appropriate? Because if I'm asking for children to sit there more than 10 minutes at a time, that is developmentally inappropriate. That's not on them, it's on me. If children are going to the door to go to, let's say, get ready to go outside, and I start to transition, and they're going to the door, and I'm, transitions are crazy. So you're here, you're there, you're everywhere. And finally, when you get to the door, 10 minutes has passed since the first child got to the door. And they're starting to fumble. They're starting to pull stuff off the shelves. They're starting to poke each other, pull each other's hair, whatever it is, right? That's not their fault. That's on me. Because I expected them to wait for 10 minutes. That first child, those first couple children who arrived at the door, as we were finishing up over here, they have maxed out their ability to stand and wait. And it's inappropriate for us to ask them to wait for long periods of time. That's just a developmentally inappropriate expectation. So go back to, they're still learning how to figure out the skill set. You ask the question, is my expectation developmentally inappropriate or appropriate? Am I asking something that is outside of what I should be asking when they're 3 and 4? You got to know child development. You're working with children. You got to know child development. Now, granted, culturally we develop in different ways, but there are some very consistent patterns of development that we can kind of rely on to give us some insight to how children grow, learn, and develop. But you got to know that stuff. And so am I asking a question that is developmentally or expectation is developmentally inappropriate, or is it appropriate? And here's the big one. What can I do? What can I do to support that skill set development? What do I need to do? So go back to my daughter at the grocery store. Okay. She's having very big emotions. So number one, I need to let her know that she can feel what she feels. Number two, she needs to feel safe, secure, and connected to me as the pillar of strength, as the grown-up who loves and cares for her. Okay. And I did this for children in the classroom as well. And so then we keep it moving. Like, I don't afterwards go, do you remember we made a list? Don't you remember we did that? Why did you need to do that? Next time you need to. Nobody wants that after an episode that we have. I don't care if you're 4, you're 40. Nobody wants to hear that at the back end of a situation that was very, very difficult. That is not the time to lecture. You just go, yeah, that was really hard. And we go, come, let's finish grocery shopping. And so we want to create that safe experience for children. And then after the fact, we go, okay, what skill set is she still learning? And I think I mentioned a few already. She's still learning a few things. She's very good at communicating her needs because we had worked on that for a very long time, but a lot of children are not. So you have to figure out, okay, what's the skill set developmentally that this child is still developing? Okay. As my expectations developmentally appropriate or inappropriate in the circle time situation, if we're sitting there for 15, 20 minutes and they're 3 and they're young 4, like max is 15 minutes for older 4-year-olds, max at any whole group experience. I don't care if you're on the tables or if you're sitting on the floor, children should not be sitting for longer than that. And it's 5 to 7 minutes for 3 to 5, like 3 and 4-year-olds, young 4s. And the only time we would ask 4-year-olds to sit for a longer period of time is if they're super hyper engaged. Like if I'm reading a book and they're like, whoa, what's going to happen? Like that, then we can spend a little bit more time. But if I got kids and I'm like, I'm waiting, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, like, circle time's over. Circle time's over. You got to find a new way to engage them because clearly that's not working, okay? But we tend to blame the children, and it's not about the children. It's not about them. It's about what we need to do. So that's that third step. So I'm going to go back because I went here and there and everywhere, right? So the first one is we observe a behavior, right? We observe the behavior and we go, okay, what we got to, deal with the behavior, prior segments. Okay. But the next part is what skill set is the child still developing? What would be the next part of their development? On that, and I keep doing that because I kind of see learning as this continuum. Well, it's more like it's not actually a continuum. It's like waves, and so they grow and develop, and then they go whoop, and they come back. And so sometimes we see regression. Sometimes we're like, why are they doing this? They weren't doing that before. It's just how we develop. So they go woo woo woo, then they go back, and then they come back woo woo woo, and so it's up and down, and it's everywhere. It's not a straight line. Okay. So we got to go, okay, what's the next part of the development? What do I need to do? What do I need to do now? What do I need to do? How can I support the child? What steps can I make? What language can I use? What experiences do I need to offer? How do I get the other people that I'm working with, all the other grown-ups, that we're on the same page so that we're providing that consistent support to this particular child? That's where you come into play, where you have to do these careful observations. You have to know who your children are. You have to understand their cultural backgrounds, their ways of being. All of those things are super significant because there isn't one way. There isn't one approach. Every child is uniquely different. And your role and responsibility as an early learning and care provider, an early childhood educator, a family child care provider, anyone who works with children, your role and your responsibility is to honor who they are as individuals, get to know them wholly and completely, and adapt and adjust how you approach learning and teaching according to each child. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that's really hard work. Yeah, it is. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. But that's our job. That's our job. They're still learning. So just take that with you. Okay. They're still learning how. They're still learning how to transition. She's still learning how to come to circle time. She's still learning how to clean up after, during cleanup time. She's still learning how to do that. She's not trying to be bad. She's not trying to dismiss you. She's not doing any of those things. That's our filter. She's just still learning how to clean up when it's cleanup time. And so my job is to help her figure out how to do that so that she feels good about it and that it's a positive experience so that she'll want to do it again and again and again. Okay? Hopefully that is helpful to you. Remember that. They're still learning. What do I need to do? And is my expectation developmentally appropriate?